What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel here. Tons to talk about here. First of all, I need to eat some humble pie because I was not expecting in the slightest that Dom Ducharme would be let go this season. And I'll tell you why. It's because Jeff Gordon and Kent Hughes both explicitly said that there will not be a coaching change until the end of the season. Now, some people like to assume that I have a bias and a fandom towards Dom. Well, yes, he did bring Memorial Cup to Halifax, and I'm grateful for that. And I do think he is a good coach. Call me crazy. But the main reason why I did not think it was going to happen this season, is because Jeff Gordon and Kent Hughes said so. And I truthfully believe that going back on your word, especially as a new GM in this Montreal market where the media is absolutely ruthless, not a good decision. Doesn't mean I'm against Dom being fired or not. My thing is just that they should have waited to reevaluate once we got to the offseason. That way they keep their word. And you know what, guys? This team still sucks. They're still going to get blown out a lot this season. I don't think he lost the room. He may have lost a few players within the room, specifically some vets. I'm looking at you, Jeff Petrie. But, I just think it's not a good precedent to start for this management group in this market. You can get away with things like this in other markets where there's less media pressure, where there's less attention being paid to the franchise 24/7. But here, I don't know. I think you're giving a lot of power to the Montreal media. They now know that they can put pressure on this franchise to make certain decisions. Now, that being said, Jeff Gordon is a highly respected executive in the NHL. So, you know what? Maybe it's a case of, they're the ones with the knowledge of what's going on in the room. They're the ones who know what's working and what isn't. And maybe, truthfully, it just wasn't Dom's time, and it was pertinent for them to not go back on their word, but to reevaluate. It's a fluid situation, and maybe they decided, you know what's best for this franchise is to boost the morale in the room by firing Dom and hiring a new coach. I mean, look at Vancouver with Bruce Boudreau and how they turned things around very, very quickly. Maybe Habs management group is looking at this in terms of, we're hindering the young players by having them play in this sort of atmosphere, and maybe they're just looking to turn that around, turn the morale around for this group so that coming to the rink is not awful for these guys. I mean, we heard Josh Anderson say stuff like that last night after the blowout loss to the New Jersey Devils. It's not fun to come to the rink right now, and I think as part of management, you really have to take that into consideration. So, all that being said, I don't think Dom was the issue. I think you can point to, the loss of Phil Deneau, the injury of Shea Weber, Carey Price leaving the team last minute before the season started. That was a bit of a shocker to the whole room, finding out that news about Carey Price. Furthermore, you start the season without Joel Edmondson, and that compounds the issue of not having Shea Weber. So there's a lot of issues that we started this season with. Furthermore, this defense cannot move the puck. It's not a coincidence that all the forwards are struggling mightily right now, except for maybe Nick Suzuki, but even he is not at his best right now. And when you have defensemen that cannot support the play, that cannot move the puck up the ice, that cannot participate in cycles and have, agility to make quick plays with limited space, your forwards are going to struggle. When you look at the box score for the Montreal Canadiens most nights, the goals they do score, it's typically all forwards involved, the goal scorer and the playmakers. That's not good. Speaking of playmakers, the team doesn't really have many, so your shooters, which Montreal has plenty of, are going to struggle. So don't expect the Montreal Canadiens to turn this thing around all of a sudden just because Dom Ducharme is now gone. Don't get your hopes up for that, okay? Now, all that being said, I'm a little disappointed in how a portion of our fan base is reacting to this news. I understand a lot of people were hoping for this dismissal for quite a long time now, so I understand the relief, I guess, for it to happen, but there's a lot of disrespectful things being thrown around, so I just want to take a minute here to thank Dom Ducharme because, maybe short-lived. His tenure was short-lived, but during that short-lived tenure, the Montreal Canadiens made the Cup final. And I know there's people that don't want to give him credit for that at all and put all the credit to the veterans in the room, and that may be the case. But nonetheless, he was the head coach while this team made a miracle run against all odds to the Stanley Cup final. So I thank him for that. I do expect he'll be back into the NHL, whether it's in an assistant role behind the bench or eventually as a head coach sometime down the line. I understand he's looked at as one of the worst coaches in the history of the NHL right now, but I mean, look no further than Dallas Eakins. He was considered that, 5 to 7 years ago, whenever it was, and now he's back in the NHL, head coaching the Anaheim Ducks, and they're on a roll. So these things, it's just the nature of the beast, and I'm sure Dom understands that as well, but I just want to thank him for his time behind the bench. It could not have been easy. I mean, he starts with a team that is dealing with COVID protocols, and it ends up condensing their schedule into a very short amount of time, and they play the most games out of any team in the NHL in that time frame towards the end of last season. Then they go on this, cup run, which was amazing, and then to start next season, all of what I just mentioned, happens. So just a roller coaster of emotions. It was his dream job to coach the Montreal Canadiens. He did it. He got to the Cup final, so I'm happy for that. But I'm a little sad for the guy too, because he got a bit of the raw end of the deal here. And I get there's complaints about how he was handling the young players, but at the same time, Suzuki's doing very well, and Poehling has made steps in the NHL thus far. However, these guys aren't highly touted blue chip prospects. Even Cole Caulfield, you may call him blue chip, but he got a good long look in the top six and, premier power play time to start the season. Didn't do much with it. I really think that, had he been able to, if the injuries hadn't mounted and if the COVID protocol stuff had mounted as well, I truly believe Cole Caulfield, after his stint to start the season, ideally for Dom would have spent the rest of the season with Laval. Now, Poehling, I think he was going to be a guy called up and down regardless this season, but I think his true home right now should be with the Laval Rocket in the AHL for his development, and that goes for Cole Caulfield as well. You don't just hand out premier, minutes to guys who haven't earned it, and there's the aspect of, well, he's a skill player. He doesn't belong in a bottom six. Well, it doesn't belong in the NHL. So at least with the way he's been playing as of late, and he has had stints here and there, even after the start of the season. He's had stints, Cole Caulfield, on the power play here and there, and he's not exactly lighting the lamp. So anyway, guys, don't expect a whole lot different from the new coach, whoever it is that takes over, because the team is still not that good. It's going to be a tough end. I guess tough second half to the season. It's dragging on so much. And it's just going to keep dragging on, unfortunately. But at least we have things to talk about, like, I wouldn't wish it on anyone, but like Dom's firing, this provides us a lot to talk about. Now we have to wonder who is going to be replacing him. As I'm filming this, the Canadiens may announce it, but I'll quickly speculate, and I don't want to spend too much time on it for that exact reason. But you got to think, Patrick Waugh is going to be at the forefront, and he interviewed for the GM position, so that Jeff Gorton and Kent Hughes recently spoke, or at least Jeff Gorton recently spoke to Patrick Waugh. Now, I'm not so sure he's the right decision to come behind the bench, only because of his history with the Colorado Avalanche, quitting on them last minute when he was behind their bench as head coach, and we all know how he likes to have the power. He's a bit of an emotional guy. However, extremely experienced as a coach. So it could make sense. And regardless, it'll be very exciting if it is Patrick Waugh. I would be, despite not being sure if he's the right choice, I would be extremely excited to see him behind the bench of the Montreal Canadiens. I definitely think it would be intriguing. It'd be something to watch. And I'm not against him being the coach either. So another option could be Alain Vigneault. He's coached the Habs before, and it would almost kind of come full circle here because he is second last to Dom Ducharme in terms of coaching record with the Habs, I believe. So to see a guy who joined the NHL as a rookie coach many years ago, for the Habs, he struggled, he got fired. Eventually he found his way back into the NHL, Alain Vigneault, and then for him to get hired as head coach of the Habs right after Dom Ducharme, who literally just dealt with the exact same thing Alain did many years ago, it kind of comes full circle, right? So, and I was pondering last night, actually, in terms of Dom's status as head coach. Marc Bergevin hired him after Claude Julien. Claude Julien was brought in while this team was kind of in the middle of a reset, and I think while you're resetting, it's extremely beneficial to have a veteran, extremely experienced coach, NHL coach, with experience behind the bench. So that kind of eliminates Patrick Waugh, right? So, like I said, I think it makes sense. While you're in the middle of a reset or in the middle of a rebuild, you need to have a veteran coach to keep the players, focused on a common goal. And if it's a rookie coach during a reset, say if they were going to keep Dom on, it's a lot easier for the players to think, who's this guy? Like, he doesn't have a cup behind, a cup in his belt. He doesn't have many years of NHL experience behind his belt. So it'd be easy for the players to kind of, not buy into what he's selling. But if you have a veteran coach in there, like an Alain Vigneault, his word is what he says goes. And they have to buy in. So it kind of makes sense where the Habs right now, they went from, Bergevin somewhat accelerated their reset into a win now mode, and then they went with Dom Ducharme, had a bit of a window there where they almost won a Stanley Cup somehow, and then they were immediately back into reset rebuild, which Dom, he does have experience developing young players. Think of McKinnon and Drouin and Mac Weegar, who's in Florida now, and many examples. But his time with Hockey Canada with the World Juniors, but not exactly the coach you want for a reset or a rebuild. So I can understand, even though I'm not necessarily okay with it being done mid-season, I can understand them moving on from Dom at this point. I would have preferred it happen in the off-season. That's just my opinion, but it makes sense. So it also would make sense to me that Alain could come in and be that, that head coach that, puts the hammer down. And that's just what it is. Patrick Waugh's demeanor and his respect as an NHL player and his aggressiveness and knowledge of the game might allow him to get, skirt past the lack of NHL experience. It's only, he has won the Jack Adams, so there is that. But anyway, I don't want to spend too much time speculating on that. Another couple names maybe, you got to think bilingual, right? So there's Bob Hartley in the KHL, and they just scrapped their regular season and are going right into playoffs. He may be occupied with KHL playoffs right now, which may eliminate him. Also, I don't know. Hard to say. He would come to Montreal in the same vein as, Julien kind of ended up coming. You're there for the reset of the rebuild, and then you leave. Bob Hartley doesn't have much of a shelf life behind NHL benches. He does have significant experience, but look at how long he coached Calgary for most recently. Didn't last too long, so if he does come, it would be temporary. And who else? I'm not quite sure, guys. Let me know down in the comments who you think should take over, who could take over quickly, because we may find out very, very soon. Now, guys, again, I was wrong. Well, let's clear that out here. I definitely did not think Dom was getting fired in the middle of the season. I actually thought he'd have the benefit of the doubt, maybe even return to start next season. So dead wrong there. I have no issue eating humble pie. I come to provide opinions, and I don't shy away from saying what I believe, and I hope people who come to this channel come here for that reason. I'm not going to fall in line with the popular narrative. A lot of the time I like to play devil's advocate and go against the popular narrative just for fun. That was kind of why I liked going in on this Dom Ducharme stuff too, but it doesn't bother me in the slightest that he's been fired. I feel bad for the guy, but you know what? I got to give benefit of the doubt to Jeff Gordon and Kent Hughes. They're going to be the Habs management team for a while yet. They are new to this market. Kent Hughes is a new GM. I've already mentioned I don't necessarily agree with some of the decision making so far in terms of going back on your word and giving the media all this power. You don't want to play with fire in this market. I've seen it over the years in Toronto and Montreal specifically. They will eat you alive. And I do not want to, Edmonton as well. I do not want to find this Montreal Canadiens team in the twilight zone, in purgatory, with the Buffalo Sabres, with the Edmonton Oilers, who are consistently firing and hiring head coaches, consistently firing and hiring new management. That is how you never, ever win. Okay? So that's why I'm a little bit reserved on our new managers, our new president and new manager going back on their word this early. It gives the media a lot of power. Now, I might be wrong about that. Let me know what you think in the comments. Now, let's wait and see who's the new head coach of this team. I got a lot of thoughts as well in terms of how I would like this rebuild to go. Gonna save that video for another time. I'm trying to figure out, because I haven't been able to do videos consistently, just, life at home is extremely busy. And forgive my hoarseness. I actually have COVID right now, getting through that. So, I'm waiting for the right time to release my thoughts on how I think this rebuild or retool should go. Why don't you guys let me know in the comments how you'd prefer I deliver that? Do you want me to do it just standing here, reaction, video fashion, or do you want me to have someone come in, like maybe my brother could bring Andrew back, or maybe someone who will, disagree with me often, and we can really have some healthy disagreements and go back and forth about how this reset or rebuild should go, who we want to see stay through the whole thing, who we want to see traded before the trade deadline. Let me know how you'd like me to present that to you guys, because this channel is about you. It's about the fans, made by a fan, and that's how I like to keep it. Cheers, guys. Go Habs, go, and I'll see you soon. Woo!